Hey, what is going on guys? RZ Stealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 10 best top laners for 7.22. So like I did for the mid lane video, I'm only going to be going over 10 champions in this video to kind of explain more as to why these 10 champions are better in the preseason here. For future patches, I will still be doing the tier list for all the roles, but because of the new runes coming out, I want to focus only on the 10 best champions for this patch. So that being said, guys, let's get started. So to start it off here, the first champion we're going to take a look at is one that we haven't seen in the meta for a very long time, and is Gangplank. So right now in 7.22, if you can play Gangplank to a good level, I think he is one of the strongest top laners. He still does require a lot more skill than your average top laner though, so if you're first time in Gangplank and ranked, you're still probably not going to have the most success on him, but if you played a lot of Gangplank, then you're going to have great success in 7.22. So Kleptomancy, along with the other runes in the inspiration tree, are just super good on Gangplank. Kleptomancy allows Gangplank to just gain a ton of resources in the early game. Your Q procs it, so you're just going to be gaining a ton of gold, and you're going to be able to get to a very early Sheen and a very early Trinity Force. And the early game is the weak point on Gangplank, or a lot of people would say that. So with this rune, it just allows him to accelerate past that early game, get into his mid to late game super fast to where he is a major threat. Now, Futures Market and Cosmic Insight are pretty standard on Gangplank. Perfect Timing can be swapped out for the Biscuit depending on your matchup. If the enemy jungler is someone that does have a lot of dive potential early game, or if the enemy top laner has a lot of dive potential on you, then Perfect Timing would be the better option in that situation. But if you're in an easy lane and you don't really feel like you've got much threat of being killed in the laning phase, then you can go for the Biscuit. And then because CDR is super important on Gangplank, because his ultimate is on such a long cooldown, and because having barrels up and just having your Q up during team fights is going to allow you to deal a ton of damage, taking Ultimate Hat and Transcendence is really good on Gangplank. Next up here is going to be a top laner that I didn't really think I'd ever have on a top 10, but it's Teemo, and the main reason to why he's here is because Summon Aerie on these poke top laners is just a really good rune. So Summon Aerie, whenever you're auto attacking with Teemo, whenever you're harassing those melee champions, it will add for quite a bit more damage and quite a bit more harass in the early game. Taking the Absolute Focus as well as the Scorch is great on Teemo because it just adds to your ability to poke the enemy during the laning phase, and it just allows you to have an even more oppressive laning phase. And then in the domination tree, you're going to want to take Taste of Blood a lot of the time. It will allow you to stay topped up on HP, and that will synergize nicely with the Absolute Focus. And then Ravenous Hunter, great on Teemo because you will be healing from your ability damage, so when the enemy does end up running over your shrooms, and you just get a ton of damage from shrooms, if they do end up hitting multiple targets in team fights, then you will be gaining a lot of healing. So next up here is going to be Heimerdinger, and Heimer is on here for a lot of the same reasons that Teemo is. He's great with Summon Aerie. It just allows him to harass super well in the laning phase. Now you can also run a different page as well on Heimerdinger. You can run Kleptomancy and you can go the Inspiration tree. It just does depend on what lane you're in. If you're very easily going to be able to proc your Kleptomancy in the laning phase, then I would take that page on him. But if you are up against a ranged top laner, for example, and you're not going to be able to get too many Kleptomancy procs, then I would be taking the Summon Aerie. But overall, Heimer is just great into pretty much any melee matchup in this patch. He just does a ton of damage in the laning phase since champions don't have as much magic resist anymore, and it just allows him to have an even more oppressive laning phase, and he can really get a snowball going in the early game. Next up is going to be Pantheon. So Pantheon is another top laner that's doing super well with Summon Aerie. It just makes his laning phase so hard to deal with, especially because you're going to be chucking Qs whenever those are off cooldown. Your Summon Aerie is going to be adding even more damage to your Qs, so it's really hard to lane against Pantheon in 7.22. The celerity on him is great as well because you will be going Youmuu's a lot of the time, so that will add for the extra damage you get for your bonus movement movement speed, and then once you get boots 2 as well, you're going to be gaining quite a bit of extra movement speed, so it will add for a lot more damage. And then Mana Flow Band is pretty good on Pantheon because you are going to be harassing a lot in the laning phase, and you will be running out of mana pretty quickly a lot of the time, so that will just keep you topped up on mana and allow you to harass even more throughout the laning phase. And then for your secondary tree on Pantheon, both Domination and Precision are doing very well. I think Domination is slightly better though, just because if you're playing an early game top laner, then it is going to be better to take these runes that will increase your ability to do well in the early game. So with Domination, you can take either Cheap Shot or Sudden Impact, and you can also go Zombie Ward on Pantheon because it will allow you to be a lot safer in the laning phase. You can harass a lot easier and not really worry too much about getting ganked. Next up here is going to be Jace, and I think Jace is just a great pick in 7.22. He's probably one of the strongest top laners in this patch, along with Pantheon and Teemo. These champions that can use Summon Aerie and these champions that have very few counter matchups are great for 7.22 just because the game is so snowbally in this patch, and if you're playing one of these early game champions and you can get ahead with them in the early game, then the likelihood of you winning on these early game champions now is a lot better than previous patches. So there is two different options here for your runes on Jace top lane. You can either go Summon Aerie or Electrocute depending on your lane. If you're in a lane to where you will be able to auto attack the enemy top laner a lot, if they are a melee champion, then you should be taking Summon Aerie. If you are in a matchup though to where you don't really want to be auto attacking the enemy top laner a lot, say for example you're going up against a Teemo and Teemo's just going to blind you if you walk into auto attack range, then taking the Electrocute to enable you to go for all-ins in that lane is going to be the better option. And the final champions to round out the video are going to be more of these beefy, tankier top laners that are doing very well with the Resolve tree. So the first one here is going to be Maokai, and Maokai by far is performing the best for any tank top laner in this patch. Both Aftershock and Grasp are doing well on Maokai. I think it does more depend on what lane you're in as to which one you want to take. If you're in a super easy lane, if you're in a melee matchup and you will be able to look for kills in the lane phase, then I just think Aftershock is a lot better than Grass. But if you are in a little bit of a harder matchup and you don't really want to be engaging on the enemy at all, then Grasp would be the better option in that situation. And then all of the other runes here on this page just synergize so well with Maokai, which is why I think he's a great pick for this patch. Font of Life just allows you to heal your team for so much during team fights because you've got a ton of movement impairing effects in your kit, so your ability to proc that during team fights is very easy to do. Conditioning just allows you to get even tankier. Revitalize allows you to heal more from your passive, so you're going to be even harder to kill. And then I think that Triumph on tank champions is just way too strong because it restores 15% of your missing health during team fights, and if you're a beefy Maokai that's got a ton of armor and magic resist in a mid to late game team fight, then restoring 15% of your health when you do end up killing a target, you don't even have to get the killing blow. It can be an assist as well. You're just gonna stay so topped up on HP during team fights, and if you don't kill the Maokai right away and he ends up getting a few of those Triumph procs, then you're probably just not going to kill him for the rest of the team fight. Now, Shen is actually performing extremely well in 7.22. He's a pick to where he's never really been that great for solo queue. In previous patches, he's always been sitting at around a 45 or 46% win rate, and he's a little bit harder to execute in solo queue just because you can never really solo carry a game with Shen. But in 7.22, he's doing a lot better for a few different reasons. The first reason is because for some reason, he got a bonus attack speed increase at level 1 by 15%. Now, I'm pretty sure that no other top laner in the game got this kind of buff, and I'm not too sure as to why they just gave Shen 15% attack speed at level 1. That's actually a really big increase, and it does allow him to trade a lot better in the early game now. I think another major reason to why Shen's a lot better in this patch is because if you can get that one good ultimate off down bot lane or mid lane or just anywhere on the map and you can end up getting your lane snowballing, it's going to be a lot easier for you to win in this patch if you snowball your lanes as to previous patches. In previous patches, even though you'd get like a good ultimate off, it never really felt like it was super influential and it's the reason why you won the game. But I think in this patch, getting good ultimates off as Shen down bot lane to get that first tower and just get your bot lane snowballing is going to allow you to win a lot more games in 7.22. Ornn is going to be up next here, and Ornn is doing great in 7.22 with these runes that just allow him to be even more tanky in the laning phase, and he was already a pretty good lane bully in previous patches, but in this patch he's performing even better. So Revitalize is great on Ornn because it does allow your W to shield you for even more, and it does allow you to trade a little bit better in the early game. Since in most matchups you will be shoving a lot as well, and you will be getting to the enemy's tower, taking the demolish on Ornn is performing pretty well for him in this patch and just allows you to take down those towers super fast, and it does allow you to get a pretty good snowball going in the early game. So Urgot is still doing very well in 7.22. He's not as godlike as he was in previous patches after he got those buffs, but he's still good enough to keep him on a top 10. So Press the Attack is great on Urgot. If you are in melee matchups, then he can really abuse this and he can really just get a lot of damage off during the laning phase. Everything else there in the precision tree should be pretty self-explanatory on Urgot, and then in the domination tree, the Cheap Shot and Ravenous Hunter synergize great with Urgot. Whenever your Q is off cooldown with Urgot, you will be able to apply Cheap Shot because Cheap Shot is only on a 4-second cooldown, and when you do use your Q on the opponent and auto attack them, you will be gaining that bonus true damage. So this just adds to Urgot's ability to just bully out these melee top laners. And then Ravenous Hunter is super good on him because it gains you bonus healing from your ability damage. So when you activate your W during team fights, you will be gaining quite a bit of healing from that. And then the 10th and final champion here to round out this video is going to be another new pick that we haven't really seen too much in previous patches, but it's Yorick. Yorick's gotten a lot better in this patch with the new runes and also because of a buff he got. He got a buff to his Q in this patch to where it now works on towers, and you're also going to take the Demolish rune on Yorick, which allows him to deal more damage to towers as well. So those two things combined just make Yorick an insanely good tower pusher in this patch. He takes towers super fast, so he's just a really strong split push threat if he does get ahead in the early game. And then because you just want to be split pushing on this champion, using your Q as frequent as possible on the turrets and using your ultimate as frequent as possible, taking the ultimate hat and transcendence on Yorick are very good choices. So that is going to be all for this video. These were the 10 best top laners in patch 7.22. Now there is actually a lot of other things that are doing well in this patch too, but because I only wanted to focus on 10 champions for this video, there were still some pretty good picks that were left out. So for example, a lot of these other tankier top laners like Malphite and Sion are also doing pretty well in this patch, and there's some other kind of cheesier top laners that aren't played very much but are also doing pretty well. So like Malzahar top lane and Wukong top lane are also doing pretty well for this patch. With that being said, guys, if you did enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.